Walking into an authorized Rolex dealer, you might think some of those watches are pretty unique, right? Maybe 20% of them catch your eye as something special. But what if we went way beyond that? I mean, we're not just talking rare, but the kind of 1% rare that only a select few have ever laid eyes on. That's where we're headed today. Today we're about to take a closer look at the top 5 Rolex watches so exclusive, they're practically whispers in the wind. Without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1. Rolex Split-Second Chronograph Reference 4113 Rotron. So, you might be picturing the biggest Rolex as something like the Yacht-Master or the James Cameron Deep Sea, both clocking in at 43mm, right? But back in 1942, Rolex went all out and crafted a 44mm beast of a watch. We're talking about the manually wound split-second chronograph, officially known as the Reference 4113, but let's call it the Rotron chronograph for kicks. Now, this watch is a rare bird. Only about 12 of these exist in the wild. And get this, the last time one hit the auction block, it fetched a cool $2.5 million. But the record? An impressive $25 million at a Phillips auction. This watch was a game-changer back in the day, especially with its anti-magnetic features. Think about it. In the 1940s, if you were a doctor working near machines spewing magnetic fields, your watch would go haywire. Rolex's answer? The Rotron. Fast forward to today and pretty much all Rolex watches brush off magnetic fields like it's no big deal. But back then, it was revolutionary. And the looks? It doesn't scream Rolex at first glance. Its hefty size alone is enough to make you do a double take. But yes, it's got the iconic 2-register chronograph layout, and if you squint, you'll spot the Rolex crown. Although even that doesn't look quite how we're used to. But hey, we're diving back into the 1940s here, so a bit of difference is to be expected. For watch aficionados, stumbling upon one of these is like finding the Holy Grail. It's right up there with those legendary one-off Rolexes, like the Paul Newman one that's also fetching millions today. Number 2. Platinum Yacht-Master. This piece might catch you off guard because it's not an old-timer. We're actually talking about something quite recent. At the Monaco Legends auction, a Platinum Yacht-Master snagged a jaw-dropping $2.5 million. Now you might wonder, what's so special about this watch? Well, it once belonged to Patrick Heiniger, the late legendary president of Rolex. That man and his family have been monumental in sculpting Rolex into the titan it is today. I mean, we could spend hours talking about their impact on the brand. In 2023, Rolex became the first watch company to hit a revenue of $10.1 billion, leaving giants like Cartier and Omega in the dust. Just to give you a sense of scale, even if you combined the revenue of the second, third and fourth companies, they wouldn't touch Rolex's numbers. Now back to this Yacht-Master. It's not your ordinary piece. We're talking 100% platinum. The case, the bracelet, even the flip lock. And the dial is another level of unique, decked out with diamond hour markers and baguette-cut sapphire. You won't find another Yacht-Master like it. This was a subtle flex by Heiniger, a nod to those in the know without being overly flashy. After all, he could have had any watch designed for him, but he chose this understated masterpiece to celebrate Rolex's 10 millionth chronometer. Pieces like this often end up in private collections, rarely seen again, and at $2.5 million, it's clear why. Owning such a watch is a once-in-a-lifetime shot for collectors. But before we jump into exposing our next rare Rolex watch, how about you do us a favor and hit that subscribe button for opulent oasis? Alright, let's dive back in. Number 3. Platinum Daytona with Lapis Lazuli Dial. Let's talk about this Platinum Daytona with a Lapis Lazuli Dial that's been turning heads. Can you believe it went for $3.3 million? This piece hails from 1999, a landmark year when Rolex decided to bid farewell to the zenith movements they'd been using since '88. Here's a fun fact for watch lovers. Those early or last production models are like gold dust because Rolex usually pumps out watches like there's no tomorrow. Yet those specific models are fewer and far between. Now onto the nerdy details. When Rolex switched from Zenith in 2000, the A-serials were the last Zenith-equipped Daytonas. But the plot thickens with the P serials from early 2000 still rocking the zenith movement, making them ultra-collectible and pricier by about 30 to 40%. But let's circle back to our Platinum Daytona. Imagine introducing a Daytona in platinum back then. People thought it was too much. It was heavier, pricier, and not everyone was a fan of that brown bezel. Rolex's Daytona lineup had been pretty standard until then. Stainless steel, white gold, yellow gold, and eventually Everose. Apparently, Patrick Heinegger, Rolex's late big boss, sported one of these platinum beauties. Now, we're getting into I heard from a friend of a friend territory, but they say it was a prototype, with maybe 11 ever made. But guess what? Only one has ever popped up. Rolex's knack for spotty record-keeping adds to the mystery, but one thing's for sure, one of these babies snagged $3.2 million at auction. Imagine being the lucky duck who got this watch back in '99, not knowing it'd rake in millions years later. It's like hitting the jackpot without even buying a ticket. Number 4. Rolex 6602 Day-Date Transcontinental. Introducing the 6602 Day-Date Transcontinental. Last time we checked, one sold for around $167,000. Now, you might think, that's a lot. But in the world of rare Rolexes, it's kind of a bargain. This baby is the only Rolex with a 12-hour rotating bezel, made in the late 50s and in stainless steel, no less. Plus, it's a snug 36mm. There's a bit of confusion sometimes with its reference number, as there's a moon phase model that gets mixed up in the numbers game, but every 6602 out there has its identity proudly engraved on the case. But here's the thing, there might be only 4 of these floating around. Yet, it didn't break the bank at auction. Sometimes rarity doesn't always translate to big bucks. Maybe because it reminds folks of other vintage Rolexes, it didn't get the bidding war you'd expect. But mark our words, next time one of these hits the auction block, we wouldn't be surprised if it pulls in way more than that $167,000, especially now that the word's out about how few there are. Number 5. Rolex Reference 2737. So there's this other watch that caught everyone's eye at auction, fetching around $185,000. What makes it stand out? It's a stainless steel chronograph, but the real cherry on top is its lacquer dial. Considering we're talking about a survivor from 1938, finding one in good nick is like striking gold. Back in the day, these pieces were workhorses, not the prized collectibles they are now, so imagining one with an intact, beautiful dial after all these years is pretty wild, especially since only 12 were made. You'd think spotting one would be rare, but a few have made their rounds at auctions, some even making repeat appearances and profits for their sellers. It's a testament to their rarity and the craftsmanship behind them. Don't be fooled by the term chronograph. Adding one to a watch without losing precision is a feat of engineering magic, reminiscent of the complexities seen in pieces like the Patek 1518. Aesthetically, it's a stunner, but here's the thing, it's a discreet treasure. At 36mm, it flies under the radar. You could be wearing what's essentially a house on your wrist, and only the true connoisseurs would nod in recognition. Everything from the non-traditional chronograph buttons to the slender crown screams unique. It doesn't scream Rolex to the untrained eye, but for those in the know, it's a quiet badge of honor. And the stories you hear about someone discovering one of these in an old drawer or inheriting it without a clue of its worth, only to learn it's a fortune on their wrist. That's the stuff of legend. It goes to show you never know when you might stumble upon a hidden gem. Do you have a favorite from the list? Or maybe you've stumbled upon a hidden horological gem yourself? We'd love to hear all about it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey and haven't already, make sure to subscribe and join us here at Opulent Oasis. We're always on the lookout for the next incredible story to share. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and who knows, maybe you'll find your own rare gem. Thanks for tuning in.